everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and it's Friday. Got to get down on Friday, and you know why? It's because it's my favourite time of the week. That's right, it's time for Wrestlers of the Week. It's been a great week of wrestling on TV, on pay-per-view, various different promotions turning in big, meaty performances with some great wrestling all around. Isn't it a great time to be a wrestling fan? Right, let's get straight on with the show. First of all, some honourable mentions just off the top of my head. Bianca Belair, she won the number one contenders battle royal on NXT this week. We had Walter defending his NXT UK championship against Joe Coffey in a main event that divided opinion, but I quite enjoyed it. Eddie Dennis looked like a monster in that opening match against Trent Seven when he nearly murdered him. And who else has been really good this week? Michael Elgin had a good performance on Impact's Hard to Kill pay-per-view, and Jon Moxley, of course, is going into battle against Pac next week to see who becomes the number one contender to Chris Jericho's championship. That'll do. That's enough honourable mentions. On with the top 10. Number 10 this week, I just mentioned Jon Moxley. Let's stick with AEW Dynamite for just a second, because I'm going to talk about a man who could be turning heel very soon if recent storyline developments are to be read into, and his name is Hangman Adam Page. Now, first and foremost, Hangman was part of a really good opening tag match, a four-way tag team match on Dynamite this week between himself and Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, the Best Friends, and the Proud and Powerful Santana and Ortiz. Now, that match was a really energetic and fast-paced way to start off the show, very enjoyable. Everyone seemed to enjoy it anyway. I certainly did. Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars. I don't know if I'd go quite that far, but it was very entertaining indeed. 4.5 though. Alright, Dave, he's been having a good week, I suppose. But a major reason I really enjoyed this match wasn't just because of all the moves and all the flips and everything. It's because there was storyline development sprinkled in, or hints of storyline development, especially the potential dissension between Hangman Page and his former stablemates in the Elite, whom he remains on friendly terms with, but you can kind of sense a growing frustration within him. Sense it. I mean, he's getting wasted at every show, isn't he? And Hangman played up to this really well in this match. There were little hints of what's to come potentially, such as Matt Jackson going to tag in Hangman and then just choosing Kenny Omega instead. For what it's worth, Hangman and Kenny Omega worked together really well, and in fact they did pick up the victory with a big double team buckshot lariat and V-trigger knee combination towards the end of the match, or at the end of the match even, but it wasn't all said and done really. I mean, you get the sense that this is just going to rumble on. In fact, it continued throughout the episode, with Hangman at one stage being talked about by the Dark Order as a potential recruit, in fact their number one potential recruit, which would be certainly a big development. And also as well, that little confrontation backstage with SCU, whom himself and Kenny Omega are going to go into battle against for those tag team titles very soon. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this storyline. It's gradually developing. I like how they haven't rushed it, and if he does turn, it'll feel like they've really earned it through their plotline development going forward. So well done, Hangman Page, part of a great match and part of an excellent storyline as well. 1 point to you. Number 9 this week, what a bastard, what a bastard. It's Pac, the bastard. Pac was part of the main event of AEW Dynamite this week, taking on Darby Allin. The winner would go on to face Jon Moxley next week, and then the winner of that will go on to face Chris Jericho, because Moxley had already beaten Sammy Guevara earlier in the night. In fact, I should have mentioned, Sammy should have been an honourable mention too. He was really good. But this match was brilliant. Darby was brilliant as well. Let's give him an honourable mention too, but it was just such a busy week. But Pac really did earn a very hard-fought and brutal-looking victory here. There were various spots that made me cringe a little bit in the right sort of way, such as that sick powerbomb on the ring steps, and then another powerbomb during the closing stretches of the match, right on the canvas, just absolutely planting poor Darby Allin. And indeed, Pac was able to pick up the victory with a black arrow to the back of Darby Allin, who was lying face down in the dirt. He said, "It doesn't hurt," but it did hurt him because it was the Black Arrow, and that's Pac's finisher. It's his most powerful move. Pac picked up the victory and was then interviewed by Tony Schiavone afterwards, where there were a little few Geordie fireworks popping off here and there. Tony went, "Right, well done, Pac, mate." Tony didn't say it like that. "Right, well done, Pac, mate. You've beaten Darby Allin, but you've got to face Moxley next." And Pac basically went, "Tony, no, Tony, no, son." Basically suggesting that Moxley won't be able to compete next week because his eye got stabbed by Jericho, didn't it? He got a spike through his eye, and that led to the very exciting ending of the show when Moxley fought his way out of the back of an ambulance, stormed to the arena area, and basically said, "Pac, next year I'm going to kick your ass." I'm looking forward to the match. We've seen them wrestle already in AEW and it was really good, so I can't wait to see round 2. I'm assuming Moxley's going to win and go on to face Jericho, but we'll see how it plays out. Number 8, one of the most consistently good members, I reckon, of the Impact Wrestling roster, and a man who's just undergone a total character transformation over the course of the past few years. It's Eddie Edwards. Yes, Edwards picks up 3 points this week. Not only did he take part in probably the best pure wrestling match on Impact's Hard to Kill pay-per-view, but he also picked up a huge victory as well over the much larger and more imposing Michael Elgin. Edwards' Call Your Shot trophy was on the line. The stipulation behind that prize is that whoever has it can cash it in for a title shot of any title of their choosing. I'm assuming anyway. I wouldn't suggest that Eddie Edwards is going to go for the Women's Championship, for example, although you never ever know. Could we see Knockouts champion Eddie Edwards in the future? The way that things are in Impact, you might be able... I'm not actually seriously suggesting that, don't worry. Let's move on from the thought of Eddie Edwards just smashing his cane into various members of the women's division in Impact Wrestling. He picked up a very good victory, as I say, over Michael Elgin. It was a really good back and forth match. It was almost... Meltzer suggested in The Observer this week that it was the most Japanese style match of the whole thing, and it really kind of was. It was like a miniature version of an intense high-octane New Japan match with the momentum swinging backwards and forwards, big counters left and right. It was a really well-done match between two men who not only have years and years of experience wrestling at a very top level, but also have years of experience wrestling each other back in Ring of Honor. And indeed, Edwards was able to pick up the victory, a rather surprising victory, or at least they made it seem that way through the progression of the match where Elgin was largely dominating. But Edwards was able to pick up the potentially shocking victory and keeps a hold of that trophy, which could entitle him to become a champion in the near future. So well done, Eddie Edwards. 3 points to you. Now let's move on to somebody I had to include this week, but I'm not particularly happy about it given the recent controversy surrounding her. But you might have guessed already, it is Tessa Blanchard. The reason that I sort of had to include Tessa this week is because she is the new Impact World Champion. But at the same time, we've seen all this controversy on Twitter surrounding her, allegations of bullying, allegations of racism even, and she's denied that, but lots of people have spoken out against her. So it's a very messy and very unsavory situation. I'm not too keen on including her in this week's list, but again, she has broken new ground by becoming, I think, arguably the first woman to win the major title in a major wrestling promotion. If you class Impact as a major promotion and not somewhere like Lucha Underground maybe, where we've seen that happen before, she's certainly one of the first women to ever do this. And another reason that I kind of had to include her this week is because the match was a really good one, herself versus Sami Callihan. There was a lot of intrigue going into this match, not through any storyline development on Impact's part, more just because of the social media intrigue, I guess. This was initially intended to be Tessa Blanchard's glorious babyface victory, and there was a lot of speculation in the build-up to the show, whether they'd, switch the decision around, have Sami Callihan retain perhaps, or whether the crowd would turn on Tessa Blanchard. Instead, it was kind of much ado about nothing in terms of the live response from the crowd. They seemed to react as they would have had nothing ever been said on Twitter. And after the match, which again was a very good one, and which Tessa Blanchard did win to become the first ever female Impact World Champion, after the match she cut a promo, which was kind of in storyline, but it did occasionally hint at all of the allegations online saying, look, we're all human. It wasn't received that well, honestly, by a lot of people on social media. And I don't want to dwell on it too much because I like to keep this series just about the stuff we see on screen and in character and everything. And yeah, it's a bit of an awkward one really. Let's move on. Great match, potentially a bad situation online for Tessa Blanchard, but she has broken new ground, I suppose. Oh, I don't know how to end this segment. Let's just hurry onwards. Number 6 this week, let's go over to Monday Night Raw, where we're going to talk about a man who has been picking up a fair few points early on in 2020 in Wrestlers of the Week. I know it's only week 3, but he's been appearing about as consistently as one can over such a short space of time. It is Alistair Black, the sinister man from Amsterdam. What did Alistair Black do? He did what he's been doing best as of late, which is defeating comprehensively Buddy Murphy in wrestling matches, in really good wrestling matches as well. Even though the momentum often swings backwards and forwards between the two over the course of one of their excellent matches so far, Alistair Black always picks up the victory. Always. Buddy Murphy cannot buy a win over Alistair Black. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this match and the wider ramifications on Raw in the next point. Spoilers, guess who that's going to be. But for Alistair Black, I will say this right now. When he was called up from NXT, I thought they cannot mess this up. He is a star. He's got a unique, sinister look. He's got all the skills in the world in the ring, and he's got a really good dark character. He can cut a promo with the best of them. And it sort of hasn't happened as quickly as I imagined, really. He was in that rather inexplicable but excellent tag team with Ricochet, and since they were broken up for no reason apart from the draft, I suppose, it just hasn't all systems go for Alistair Black. He's been stuck in his room, calling people out for a fight, hasn't he? And it hasn't really happened. So I'm delighted that this little mini feud with Buddy Murphy's been going on, and I am really enjoying it. Could this be the start of Alistair Black, rising through the ranks and becoming a bona fide main event star? I certainly hope so. I think he's got everything in the world that you need to be a top level superstar in WWE. But again, that's not always a guarantee that it's going to happen, is it? As we've seen so many times over the course of history. And also, on a more meta level regarding this series, could Alistair Black be the saviour? Could he be the man to finally stop Will Ospreay's charge towards a third successive Wrestlers of the Week crown? I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. Number 5 this week, yes, I did allude to it in the previous point. Number 5 this week is the aerial assassin Will Ospreay. No, it's not. It's bloody Buddy Murphy. Now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, Jack. Buddy Murphy lost the match and you've mentioned how he always loses against Alistair Black. Why is he gaining one more point than him this week? I'll explain, and if you've seen Raw, you'll already know the answer. So yes, Buddy Murphy always loses against Alistair Black, and I didn't mind that at first. Then I started to think, ooh, they're kind of doing Buddy a little bit dirty here. Now, even though he's lost another one, I'm now thinking this is good. This is good because it segued beautifully into his next storyline. That's because after his loss to Black this week on Raw, Buddy Murphy just sat at ringside, just threw a tantrum. Not even a tantrum, he just looked sad. He just sat ringside, motionless, and just thought, why can't I beat this guy? Never mind the fact that he's, bigger and stronger and lethal, but he thought, why can't I beat this guy? And to be fair to Buddy, the story has been told throughout their matches so far that he's getting closer and closer to pulling out a victory and just cannot get it done. That's why he was so despondent at the side of the ring. And that is when Seth Rollins pounced. Because if you saw Raw this week, you'll know the main event was a fist fight between the teams of Big Show, Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens, and the heel team of Seth Rollins and the AOP. But now, that trio has grown to include 4 members, because midway through the match, with momentum against his side, Rollins literally crawled over to Buddy Murphy, who was still sat at ringside, just depressed with how his feud's going with Alistair Black, and begged him. He said, join us, like we'd say to you, Cultaholic. Join us. And Buddy Murphy went, all right then. And he helped the team win. He helped the heels win. And suddenly, from being a mid-carder, / maybe upper mid-carder who loses all of his matches against Alistair Black, Buddy Murphy is now part of perhaps the top stable in WWE. It's a great way to go, personally, I think. I love it when one storyline bleeds just seamlessly into another storyline, especially when it helps elevate somebody up the card, and especially as well when it's somebody who deserves it as much as Buddy Murphy does. So despite losing, and despite just having an almighty crisis of confidence about it, it's actually been a pretty good week for Buddy, hasn't it? Number 4 this week, it's a man who I've wanted to include for quite some time on Wrestlers of the Week, but I think this may be his first ever appearance. One of the most unheralded, I reckon, given his level of ability, one of the most unheralded members of the UK independent scene over the past countless years. It's Flash Morgan Webster. And I mentioned how Buddy Murphy didn't win one of his matches this week and it was a bad week for him. Flash Morgan Webster also lost a match this week, and one worse than that even, one step worse than that. He lost 2 matches this week, but what a pair of matches they were. The first, of course, was at NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2, in which he teamed up with Mark Andrews to take on the teams of Gallus, Imperium, and the Grizzled Young Veterans in a very exciting ladder match for the tag team titles. And yes, they didn't win that match, but because Flash and Mandrews are both smaller and more nimble guys, I think their unique skill set lent itself more naturally to the ladder stipulation, and they were able to kind of steal the show in a way and impress more than the other teams, even though Gallus put in an excellent performance in retaining the gold. And yeah, I just think this is good for Flash, because he has been so consistently excellent over the course of his UK indie career, despite picking up some pretty long-term injuries here and there. Whenever he's come back, he hasn't missed a beat. He's one of the quickest wrestlers I've seen live, I think, in my opinion, and he's so sharp and so smooth and knows how to get the crowd really on his side. So I'm delighted that he has started to catch the eye. Now let's talk about the other match he took part in, but let's talk about it in the next segment. Ooh, who could it be? You know who it's going to be. Number 3 this week is Flash's partner, Mark Andrews. There are a few wrestlers, right? I'm sure you've got this too. When I'm watching a show and you just relate to them instantly, you think, they're my kind of guy. That's me. That's me, but cooler and in better shape and good at the wrestling. For me, one of those people is Mark Andrews. He's a little happy pop punk boy, isn't he? He's brilliant. I absolutely love Mark Andrews, and I'm delighted to be giving him 8 points this week. The other match that Mandrews and Flash took part in was part of the Dusty Classic, the tournament taking part in NXT, featuring some pretty excellent teams, actually. We've got the Time Splitters, Alex Shelley and Kushida, reformed, and they're immediately eliminated, which is Really, really sad. But also, we've got the Broserweights, Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne, a very exciting tag team as well, and my favourites, in fact, to go on and win the whole thing. And the Broserweights, or Joint Manipulation, as they've been christened online by quite a few people, took on Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster in what was the best match of NXT this week. It was so much fun, so well thought out. It was kind of like a mini takeover tag team match. You know those excellent takeover tag matches that teams like The Revival, DIY, Undisputed Era, Mustache Mountain have put on over the past few years? This was like a slightly condensed version of that, and it was very good viewing. And again, yes, the boys lost. My brave little babyface Welsh boys lost, but at the same time, they put in a really good performance, and hopefully it's helped get them over on a bigger platform in front of the American audience. Mandrews, like Flash, is one of the better and quicker wrestlers, I think, on the UK scene, and has been over the past few years. And as I say, I just relate to him. I think he's great. I absolutely love Mark Andrews. I love him. I wish that I could give him loads of points every week. Bloody will. So 2 great matches this week for Flash and Andrews. I've given Andrews the slight edge in terms of points just because I think he had the slightly more eye-catching spots over the course of both matches. But great performances from both guys. Now on to number 2. For this week's number 2, we have to head to NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2 once again and talk about the import killer, or the killer import, or whatever you want to call him. Pound for pound, one of the most well-rounded wrestlers in the world, potentially. It's Jordan Devlin. Devlin is great and took part in a great match, the best match of the week in my opinion, against Tyler Bate at TakeOver Blackpool, but didn't pick up the victory. That has really cost him the full 10 points on Wrestlers of the Week this week. I'm sure he's devastated. Because I really thought Devlin was going to win this match. I thought this was going to be a slight changing of the guard kind of match where the guy you don't expect to win actually picks up the victory and heads up the card, kind of passing the guy he's beaten on the way up. And that didn't happen. Instead, he lost. But his performance was so excellent, I couldn't deny giving him a load of points. I saw 1 or 2 of the GIFs of this match get ridiculed online because there was an exchange where they did the whole like, oh, I know all of your moves, I'm going to counter every single one of them, and then Tyler Bate did his whole bounce off the ropes, turn around, big lariat thing. And just the clip of the GIF that was circulating around, I think, made it look a lot sillier than it was. I think it totally worked in the context of the match. Someone, I think it was Dave Bixens's man, was ridiculing the boxing bit because Tyler Bates got short arms, but I thought it looked good as well, again, in the context of the match. I don't think you can really judge a match just on little snippets that you see online and that people are laughing at. If you watch this match in its entirety, you'll know that it was a very, very strong wrestling match indeed. But as I mentioned, Devlin did not pick up the victory, despite pulling off a spot I don't think I've ever really seen before, maybe? I can't quite think. It was the one where they were both on the top rope and then switched places and then Devlin nailed the Spanish Fly from the top. That was insane, and just another reason why I think sooner or later we will, or we should at the very least, see him at the very top of the NXT UK roster. But now let's head on to number 1 this week, and you've probably guessed by this point, it is indeed 1/3 of British Strong Style, 1/2 of Mustache Mountain, and one big strong boy himself. God, I sound like a ring announcer. It's Tyler Bate. Tyler Bate's just going to rock up to NXT TakeOver, beat Jordan Devlin, and pick up the victory. That's my attempt at a West Midlands accent. Tom Campbell, I'm really sorry about that. I'm so sorry, mate. Apologies to anybody watching from that region as well. Tyler Bate picked up the full 10 points this week on Wrestlers of the Week and picked up a huge victory as well at TakeOver Blackpool 2. I've mentioned the spots that got ridiculed a bit online. In the context of the match, they worked really, really well. And I think so far in NXT UK, nobody, apart from maybe Pete Dunne, has been as good at delivering consistently excellent performances on TakeOver as well as Tyler Bate. But I must confess that yes, I was a bit shocked at the fact that he won this match. I thought he was going to be just taking a little step down from the card, maybe going over more to appear in regular brand NXT in America, and Devlin would head up past him. But no, Tyler Bate won, and not only that, he went over hard. Like, the match was really back and forth all the way through, but after he won, Bate got a standing ovation from the men on the balcony, and those men were William Regal, Johnny Saint, and Triple Bloody H. I mean, how hard do they want to get this guy over? And it's totally justified because he is like the total package. He's brilliant at everything he does. But at the same time, what of Jordan Devlin? I have to question that booking decision a little bit. One thing I can't question is the quality of the match. But again, the manner of Tyler's victory, or the celebration after his victory, was so intense and arguably over the top that I do have to just think there must be something big in his future. Another big singles match. I know himself and Trent Seven are taking on DIY, I believe, in the near future, but there has to be a big singles match for Tyler coming up soon, surely, after a victory like this. Could it be a rematch against Volta? Could it be against someone we've never seen him have a big match against before? I don't know, but I am excited to see it because he is a brilliant wrestler. So, congratulations to Tyler Bate. You are my Wrestler of the Week. Now let's take a look at the league table, and praise the Lord, we have a new leader, and his name is Alistair Black, leading the pack of 4, chasing him on 10 points. Tanaka, Okada, Buddy Murphy, and today's Wrestler of the Week, Tyler Bate. A little bit down, we have Tetsuya Naito, of course, the double champion of New Japan, Jordan Devlin, Cody, Kota Ibushi, and a little bit further down, we just see various different names who've impressed over the past 3 weeks, but the best thing to take away from all of this is that Will Ospreay is only in 14th. Ha ha ha! What are you going to do now, Will? He's probably going to have 4 brilliant matches in a row and totally mess up my series. See you next week. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.